What does it mean to be truly free? In the classic The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky presents a provocative perspective on freedom by contrasting two types of people, the worldly individuals and the monks. While the worldly chase pleasure and comfort, becoming slaves to these experiences, the monks, by renouncing earthly desires, attain a deeper and truer form of freedom. But why? How is this possible? Today, we will explore these questions in detail. Freedom is a concept we often associate with doing whatever we want, whenever we want, without restrictions. In its most practical definition, it could be described as the ability to act according to our own will, using our body, our mind, and our choices to shape the world around us and make decisions independently. But is that all? For Dostoevsky, the concept of freedom is far deeper and perhaps more unsettling. He argues that true freedom is not something so simple as it is directly tied to our relationship with suffering. According to him, those who cannot endure pain or face it bravely will never truly be free. This is because, by constantly fleeing from pain and discomfort, we inevitably become enslaved to whatever promises immediate relief, money, status, temporary pleasures, or even the endless pursuit of approval and security. To illustrate this idea, imagine a worldly person, someone whose purpose in life is to accumulate wealth, flaunt power, and surround themselves with comforts. They live with the goal of building what we might call palaces of pleasure, structures of apparent happiness based on material possessions, social achievements, and fleeting joys. But what happens when these palaces crumble? When the money that once guaranteed security vanishes? When the status that fueled their vanity is lost? Or when pleasures become empty and incapable of filling an existential void? These people, unable to cope with pain and suffering, become easy prey for anything that offers immediate relief. Their freedom, once understood as the ability to do whatever they pleased, disappears entirely, for they are now shackled by their own weaknesses and illusions. To be free, in this sense, is not merely to follow your desires or fulfill your ambitions. It is also to face pain, failure, and adversity head-on, without running away or seeking shortcuts. True freedom requires a strong and resilient spirit, one that can endure the ups and downs of human existence without being enslaved by promises of immediate comfort. Those who refuse to confront pain, who live in constant flight from it, become prisoners of a life ruled by fears and dependencies, forsaking the autonomy that genuine freedom demands. For Dostoevsky, freedom is not a state of constant happiness, but rather the ability to live fully, even in the face of life's inevitable suffering. While the worldly individual desperately seeks to avoid suffering, finding in pleasure and material comforts a false sense of security, the monk follows the opposite path. For him, true freedom lies in the ability to face suffering head-on, seeing it not as an enemy, but as a tool for strengthening the soul. The monk does not build palaces of pleasure, but rather mental fortresses founded on resilience, self-discipline, and a deep sense of meaning. He understands that the value of life is not found in what can be possessed or in the status one can flaunt, but in the inner strength cultivated by renouncing these illusions. Thus, if he loses money, power, or any worldly comfort, his essence remains unshaken, for he is not controlled by external circumstances. The monk's secret lies in the meaning he ascribes to suffering. As Viktor Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. For the monk, pain is not something to be feared or avoided, but rather an opportunity for growth, a path to transcend selfish desires and draw closer to something greater. He believes that suffering has a purpose beyond immediate comprehension, something that shapes character and elevates the spirit. This belief not only gives him the strength to endure pain, but also preserves his freedom of choice, his independence from fleeting distractions, and his commitment to higher values. In this context, the renunciation of pleasure is not a denial of life, but an affirmation of a deeper and more meaningful existence. The monk demonstrates that true freedom does not lie in satisfying every desire, but in not being dominated by them. He does not see suffering as a curse, but as a stern teacher imparting life's most important lessons. While many flee from pain in pursuit of fleeting pleasures, the monk rises above these traps, showing that real freedom can only be attained by those who have the courage to confront and transcend suffering. But what happens when we face suffering that seems meaningless? For example, what meaning can be found in the suffering of an innocent child? This is a profound and painful question that challenges our faith in the existence of a universal purpose. And the truth is, we do not have a definitive answer. Dostoevsky does not attempt to offer easy solutions. Rather, he invites us to reflect on a personal choice, to have faith or not. If you believe there is a greater meaning, even if it remains invisible or unreachable, you find the strength to endure suffering. This faith allows you to maintain your freedom, for you do not become dependent on temporary pleasures to escape pain. On the other hand, if you believe that suffering is purely random and meaningless, then the only solution is to flee from it at all costs. And that flight inevitably leads to the loss of freedom, as you become a hostage to whatever or whomever can offer immediate relief. Now, imagine an extreme situation where the fight for a better world demands the courage to stand against a ruthless tyrant or resist a corrupt system. Who would you choose as an ally in this battle, the worldly person or the monk? The answer is almost instinctive. The worldly person, constantly seeking comfort and pleasure, would be easy to manipulate. On the other hand, the monk, with his ability to endure pain and resist temptation, would be armed with the strength and determination necessary to persevere. Dostoevsky warns us that genuine freedom requires sacrifice. It demands a choice to seek immediate comfort or to dedicate oneself to something greater and more enduring. The choice of who you would be in this struggle, the worldly person or the monk, reflects much more than a preference. It determines how you handle life's inevitable battles and whether you are prepared to fight for a better world. Ultimately, the question of what it truly means to be free is one that each of us must answer in our own lives. Will we spend our days chasing fleeting pleasures, building fragile palaces that will collapse at the first strike of fate? Or will we choose to strengthen our spirit, learn to face suffering, and find a purpose beyond our immediate needs? Dostoevsky leaves us with a clear lesson. True freedom is not the absence of pain, but the ability to face it without fear or enslavement to false promises of happiness. Real freedom is the strength to live with purpose, without being controlled by fear, pleasure, or despair. So the final question is, what kind of freedom are you choosing for yourself? If this video made you reflect, don't forget to leave a comment. How do you define freedom? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.